Guys, welcome back. This is Eric here with Guitarsenal. Today we're going to take just a slight departure from some of our normal content. We're just going to do a quick video on bridging channels on amplifiers. Now, a lot of folks have asked, hey, what's that wire that goes across? You know, why connect the inputs like that? There's a very long conversation that can occur, but I'm going to try to give you the short and simple version. Some amps can do it really well and lend themselves a little bit better to it, and some amplifiers can't, depending on the design of the circuit. And a lot of times, you know, if you're talking a Fender amp that's about 68 or older, you can bridge the channels just fine. Like you see people with the Fender Bassmans always want to bridge the channels. You see the concerts and older super reverbs, you can bridge the channels. If you start getting into phasing issues, that's when you kind of have like a difference between the two channels, and it really has a lot to do with the way that those channels are voiced, and you can get phase issues depending on, you know, if you bridge it on an amplifier that's just not really going to be a good option for it. Best thing to do is just bridge it and give it a listen. If you got a phase issue, then I'm not completely sure what you do about that. You may have to ask Amp Tech about that. But I know that on these older Fenders, you can bridge the channels. You guys have probably seen Marshalls and Plexis and other you know, non-master volume amps where they'll just bridge the channels to get a lot more distortion and grind. So why would you want to bridge the channels? Well, for one, all right, so on this concert here, in the intro, I'm just running, that's actually the vibrato that's on the amplifier that I was running. Okay, so listen to this. All right, channel 1 doesn't have any vibrato on it. Channel 2 has vibrato. All right, and channel 2 also has a presence. So let's say that I still wanted the vibrato, but I wanted the same type of grind, but with a little bit less predominant vibrato. And what I could do is I could dial this down a bit, okay, and I could dial this up or leave it about where it's at. Now the vibrato effect should sound a little bit less predominant, but it should be about roughly the same volume. You don't hear as much of the vibrato now, okay, because we're running both inputs. So what you'll do is the input that you decide that you want to go into, you want your guitar going into input 1, and then you want to run a patch cable from the second input, it daisy chains it over to input 1. So your guitar is going through input 1, out of input 2 on the vibrato side, and into normal 1, which allows you to interact with those two. Now I've jumped the channels on my super reverb and it sounds great, but that's a 62 or a 68 drip edge. Now some of the later circuitry changes that they made to some of the Fender amps, they don't quite lend themselves as well. I think it has something to do with the way that the amplifier picks up the reverb and vibrato as to how the circuits are. It can cause some phase issues, but apparently on the older amps you can get away with it. That's why you see, like I said, Fender Bassmans, concerts, really any blackface era amp, or that's original blackface amp, or early, you know, 68 or older, you're going to be able to get into that territory. Old Tweed amps, you'll see this employed quite a bit. So you hear that now the vibrato effect is not as intense. because we're hearing more of channel 1, which is the dry signal, and less of the vibrato channel. All right, let's give that a listen. It's going to be a little bit louder, Chad. I think I might have turned it up a bit. So you hear considerably less of the effect. So see, a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the sounds you get out of amps has a lot really to do with the speaker complement, the quality of the output transformer, and then also how you set the amp up. If I want a more intense vibrato setting, I'm going to bring in more of that vibrato channel. Now, the way I tend to run a lot of my Fender amps is I'll run them a little bit more evenly matched, okay? Now, we could also, if, let's say that this channel had reverb on it and vibrato, and say that when we cranked it, the reverb is sounding really, really washed out, okay, or the amplitude, the change in amplitude that the vibrato gives is making a washy or wishy kind of weird sound, I can still crank this bad boy up right here, okay? And if this is too intense, I can leave this a little bit lower. Now I'll tell you what, let's try 50%. So the amp on 5, we're going to crank the dry channel. We'll see how this sounds with the reverb, or vibrato. I'll tell you what, this is just naked amp just with the vibrato. I'm going to let a chord ring out. All right, let's see if we can hear a little bit more of that vibrato. I'm going to let a chord just ring out. Very subtle. See what I mean? Now, let's say that we don't want subtle. Say we want it to be crazy. Well, I can bring this volume back down. Let's inch this back up to 7. Leave our dry volume a little bit lower. Because remember, you can also get a lot more gain. You've got more of the tubes working for you. If I was only running into the right side, the vibrato only side, and I left channel 1 out of the equation, then I would want to take those knobs and turn them all the way down. Okay, we're going to go over that in a future video. All right, now this should be a little bit more intense vibrato. See the big difference there in the sound? So you see how that works. The same can be applied for reverb or vibrato or both. You can dial in and sort of get the right flavor. If you don't jump the channels, you can't really do that. If I'm only running into that one channel and I turn the amplifier down, it's either louder or it's softer, but it's not less intense. The intensity and the way that the reverb and vibrato is set up is going to be what it's going to be. but by bridging the channels, it gives me some flexibility in tone shaping options, okay? So hopefully this clears the air on if you can bridge, you know, amplifiers or not, or what the bridging of the inputs really means. Now, it's kind of outside the wheelhouse of this video. You can also bridge multiple amplifiers. So what if I were to take, instead of going out of input number 2 and going, all right, let's just take this a step further. We have an output there. We have an extra input, number 2, that's on the number 1 channel. I could take a chord out of that and I could run that into another amplifier of the same type. Now be careful doing that. You will run into phase issues, and you'll know really quick. It'll sound kind of quacky and strange. It'll have this odd kind of upper mid-range, high register quack that you won't really know where it's coming from. But phase issues, you'll definitely know it. It has a really strange sound. It won't sound normal. It won't hurt the amp to try it, but if you get a phase issue, that's something you probably have to talk to your amp tech about. But you could, if I had 2 Fender concerts, I could go into input 1 on the vibrato channel, out of 2, into 1 on the normal channel, out of 2, and into another concert. And I could repeat the whole process as many times as I wanted. That's why you see, you know, old footage of Hendrix, and he would have multiple Marshalls back there, and all of them daisy chained together. That's what he's doing, is jumping the inputs of the amplifiers. More sound, more gain, it's just crazy. Okay, so guys, thanks for watching today's video. We hope you enjoyed it. I do have a video on this concert being dimed completely to the gills in terms of really being ponied out. If you want to hear this thing super loud and super crunchy with this exact guitar, make sure you check out that video. Thank you very much for watching. We post every Monday and Friday here on Guitarsenal. Make sure you tune in. This has just been a quick video on bridging the inputs on your amplifiers. A lot of people don't know you can do this. It's kind of old school knowledge, you know. Some of these new folks, these new kids don't know so much about bridging, you know, the inputs on your amps. So that's definitely an old school trick, and it works awesome. So guys, thank you for watching. Make a little bit more racket here. I want to hear that glorious vibrato there on the Fender concert. I'm going to engage a Spaceman Effects Polaris, and we're going to make some noise. All right, let's do it.